This presentation is designed to introduce the most commonly used features of the TI-83 and TI-84 series of calculators. It covers most of the types of functions used in math classes at Germana. This workshop describes features of the TI-83 and TI-84 series of calculators, including the Plus and/or Silver Edition versions. All of these are very compatible, with very few functional differences. The TI-84 is a minor upgrade of the 83, with a bit more memory, a USB connector, and a few other features added. The techniques described in this presentation apply to all 83 and 84 series calculators. TI-89 and TI-89 titanium calculators are inherently different from the 83 and 84 models. Because TI-89s include support for symbolic algebra and calculus operations, they work a bit differently from the 83 and 84 models. Some of the techniques described here may work on TI-89s, but if in doubt, it's best to check the manual. TI-83 and 84 calculators, and graphing calculators in general, work somewhat differently from standard 4-function calculators. In addition to obvious differences, like their graphing capability, these types of calculators perform operations in the same algebraic order as in math textbooks. Expressions can be edited while being entered, and are evaluated only when complete. When evaluating mathematical expressions, there is a standard order of operations convention which ensures that the equation is always evaluated the same way everywhere. Expressions inside parentheses are evaluated first, then exponents, then multiplication and division left to right, and finally addition and subtraction left to right. The TI-83 and 84 will evaluate expressions in this way. Addition, subtraction, multiplication, and division work much as you would expect. The multiplication and division operators look somewhat different on the screen, though. The multiplication symbol is a small star, and division is represented by a /. These are the standard computer symbols for multiplication and division. The TI-83 and 84 calculators support the use of parentheses for complex expressions. For example, parentheses can be used to make additions be evaluated before multiplications. Parentheses can also be nested inside one another for especially complex expressions. The expression will be evaluated from the inside out. To raise a number to a power, type in the number, press the caret key just below the clear key, then type in the power. The square root function, second then the x squared key, can be used to take the square roots of a number. Press second, then the x squared key, then type the number. Remember to close the parentheses, and press enter. Also, since numbers can be raised to any power, including fractional powers, roots of numbers can be calculated by raising the number to a fractional power. For instance, to take the cube root of a number, raise that number to the 1/3 power. Remember to use parentheses around the fraction so that it stays together and is evaluated correctly. The second key is used to access the functions written in the same color as the key itself, gold on the TI-83 and blue on the TI-84. Press the second key and then the appropriate function key. The alpha key is used to access letters and a few symbols written in green. Press the alpha key, then the key underneath the letter or symbol in green. To enter several letters at a time, the TI-83 and 84 calculators have an alpha lock feature similar to caps lock on a computer. To use alpha lock, press second, then alpha. When you're finished, press alpha again to disengage alpha lock. The TI-83 and 84 calculators can graph XY functions. In order to do so, some preparation is needed. First, make sure the function is expressed as y in terms of x. Next, decide on a window for the function. In this example, we'll be graphing a sine function expressed in degrees, so we'll set the coordinate window to show x from -90 to 90 and y from -1 to 1. Once you've decided on the coordinates for the viewing window, press the window key to enter them. Again, in this example, we'll have the x-coordinates range from -90 to 90, and the y-coordinates range from -1 to 1. X-scale and y-scale control how many units apart the dots on the display are. For instance, here the x-axis dots are 10 units apart, and the y-axis dots are 1/10 of a unit apart. X-res controls the resolution. Leaving it set at 1 will produce a more accurate graph at the expense of a bit of speed. Remember to use the negative key and not the minus key to enter negative numbers. Once the window is set up, press the y equals key to enter the function. The y equals is assumed by the calculator. Just enter the right-hand side of the expression in terms of x. Once the expression is entered, press the graph button to view the graph. Once a graph has been created, it can be traced with the built-in cursor. With the graph displayed on the screen, press the Trace button. This will place the trace cursor on the graph. Press the left and right arrow keys to move the cursor back and forth along the graph. Approximate cursor coordinates are displayed at the bottom of the screen. Log base 10 can be computed easily on the TI-83 and 84. Press the log key on the left of the keyboard, then key in the number, then close the parentheses and press enter. Log x and 10 to the x are complementary operations. Each cancels the other. In addition to log base 10, natural log, log base e, can also be computed. The ln, natural log key, is used in the same way as the log key. E, roughly 2.71828, is a mathematical constant just like pi. It's used in many mathematical expressions, including growth and decay models. E to the x and natural log of x are complementary operations just like 10 to the x and log of x. TI-83 and 84 calculators can be used to perform matrix calculations. To do so, the matrices must first be entered in the calculator. Press second, then matrix, above the X inverse key, then scroll over to the Edit menu. Select the matrix to be edited with the arrow keys and press Enter. This will bring up an editor screen. First, enter the dimensions of the matrix, rows and columns, then fill in the matrix elements one by one. When you are done, press second quit to exit. When one or more matrices have been entered, they can be accessed from the same matrix menu. Press second matrix, then select the matrix to be used from the name menu. Treat matrix names like you would numbers or variables. For instance, you can add two matrices together, or subtract one from another, provided they have the same dimensions. TI calculators can store numbers into letter variables for later use. To do this, type the number to be stored, press the Store key to the left of the 1, then press alpha and the variable letter to be used. For example, to store the value 3.141 into the letter P, press 3.141, then store, then alpha P. The calculator already has a very precise value for pi, however.